Welcome back to another episode of VHS Files presents the horror section. This podcast contains spoilers, adult content, and harsh language. Listener discretion is advised. Now your hosts, Josh and Jason. Enjoy the horror. Welcome back to the VHS Files presents the horror section, the podcast where we take a movie off the horror shelves and look for the almost famous, a bigger quote, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And how are you guys doing tonight? Mr. Eric is joining us once again.
Special guest, Eric is on the show once again. So rare, so rare to be here. It's great to be here again. Thanks for having me. It's been a while. How have you guys been? How's the show been?
Feels like it was 10 years ago.
You're lucky we let you on here, the redheaded stepchild of VHS Files.
Yeah, we were just having a big discussion on if Eric has graduated from the School of Horror yet, and I still think the debate's still going.
These two started watching movies younger than me, therefore they feel like they have some kind of advantage over me. It's unfair. They're picking on me.
I am pretty pretentious, I have to say.
Yeah, Josh was even in a band called Pretentious at one time, so
That's how full of myself I am.
yeah. So, and that's a real thing. That's not even made up. That's how pretentious he is. So.
Well, this week we watched a grand old horror movie, one that I did not see when I was a kid, and it was my pick. This week we watched Stuart Gordon's Reanimator.
The movie of the week.
Herbert West is at the top of his class in medical school. He's brilliant, but a little weird.
I've broken the 6 to 12 minute barrier. I've conquered brain death.
His experiments have always been unorthodox.
It was dead.
But lately they're getting out of hand. And he's just made a discovery that could wake up the dead.
Herbert West has affected reanimation in dead animal tissue.
What are you thinking? How do you feel? He's dead? Not anymore.
Herbert West brought a lot of dead people back to life. And not one of them showed any appreciation. H.P. Lovecraft's classic tale of horror, Reanimator.
You'll never get credit.
It was fun.
One you didn't see as a kid, even though you're a horror graduate.
You know, is this mandatory education for a horror fan, Jason? Can we talk about this?
I mean, there's a lot of people out there who love these, but I mean, it's not up there like with Freddy, Jason, Michael. It's nowhere near that.
Which are lowly, like, bottom of the barrel horror movies, according to Mr. Eric over here.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, like Leatherface, Exorcist, all that stuff.
No. You guys are adding and subtracting things that I've said here, and that's not accurate. Although I will say, the Friday the 13th movies, you know, are largely CD level films.
They're pretty much garbage.
Yeah, like I mean, but you know, Halloween or Texas Chainsaw, that's A class. That's top of the top up there. So, and there's a big spectrum, and I love it all. I love the whole spectrum, you guys.
He's just Voorhees in the bottom of the barrel, dude.
That's all right. I mean,
I don't know. I think we just lost some listeners on our horror section here. Sorry, guys.
Well, you know, as being a fan of Friday the 13th, I can actually hang when someone says that it is bottom of the barrel, because compared to something like Halloween, it doesn't even compute, to be honest. So that's okay, Eric. I forgive you.
Thank you.
But I mean, still, this movie, I mean, I know that we all went to the video stores back in the day, and this was always on the shelf. And I was actually kind of like, because I believe back then it was R-rated or X-rated when this movie came out, and even my mom, who let me watch movies with nudity and gore in it, I don't think she was big into me watching this. Like, she would look at it, she's like, let's pick something else.
I don't blame her.
And then when I did see it later, I was like, I'm kind of glad my mom didn't let me watch it, kid.
Not when you want to watch with your mom.
Yeah. There's a meme on Twitter or Instagram or somewhere that I saw it, and it's one of those where it's like it shows you a scene from a movie and it goes, when I'm by myself in my room, and then the next one is like a picture of the guy holding his head to Barbara Crampton's crotch, and when my parents walk in the door.
In the room. Oh yeah.
Perfect movie for that kind of a meme for sure. You know, I felt like I wasn't part of the horror crowd a little bit, considering I hadn't seen this. This was technically a second watch for me. I watched this movie last year, and I think we considered talking about it at some point last year, but things just got mucked up with our schedule, and we ended up not talking about it. But this movie blew me away, and I was texting everybody, and I was like, dude, we got to talk about Reanimator. This is the perfect kind of movie for our show. And I got to say, like, even though I've only got, at this point, I'm only 3 full watches into this movie, and I fucking love this movie so much.
Yeah, I mean, this was my second watch, and as well, I watched it, as an adult first. Mm-hmm. It wasn't one I saw as a kid or younger or whatever. So I hadn't seen this in years. So this is really my second watch, and I enjoyed it more this watch than the first. The first one, I think I wasn't quite sure what was going on. Sometimes the second watch, like clicks with you better. Mm-hmm. So, the first one I was like, okay. And then, and of course I appreciated all the moments in the film, but then this time, I was more along for the ride with everything else. And it was a more enjoyable watch this time.
Well, I still have yet to see the sequels to this, so that's something we have to look forward to here. Maybe those will pop up on a horror section in the future. But as far as this one goes, like I said, directed by Stuart Gordon. This was his first feature that he directed, and after this, he would go on to do a bunch of very popular 80s horror stuff. From Beyond, it was the next year. Dolls. He ended up doing stuff like Castle Freak, which brought back a lot of the same cast. And he's very famous for working with Jeffrey Combs, who's in this, along with Barbara Crampton. So he's also made some not so great horror movies, from what I understand, but none of those I've seen. I actually did watch From Beyond and Dolls after I watched this, because I just kind of wanted to get familiar with more of his stuff. Those are some interesting ones that will be fun to talk about on the show someday, too.
I thought it was great. I mean, going back through this, like I said, I didn't watch this a lot either. I mean, I had seen it as a teenager and stuff like that, but it definitely didn't stick with me until I was older and watched it. But you go back and you check out Stuart Gordon's stuff. I mean, not only was he a director, but he wrote one of my favorite B horror movies, The Dentist. He wrote that. Mm-hmm. You probably knew that with what's his name? I can never remember the name of that movie. But he also wrote Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah, he does have a writing credit for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
So we go from headless crotch moment to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So, yeah.
Yeah, no headless crotch moment in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
That would be a very different movie, I think. This was released October 18th, 1985. Budget of an estimated $900,000 with a box office of $2 million. So pretty successful for a horror movie back in the 80s for a small little micro budget. And this was released amongst the likes of Silver Bullet, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, Demons, Fright Night, and Return of the Living Dead.
Ooh, stiff competition right there, all the way across the board.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Heck of a year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of really good horror movies this
Every year around this time was like that.
Yeah, the 80s was prime time for good, cheesy horror movies, and this one was right there amongst the best of them. So, are you guys ready to get into a little bit of trivia from 1986?
Oh, 86 or 85?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1985.
That was a test, and we passed.
There you go.
On October 19th, 1985, the very first Blockbuster Video was opened in what city?
T-minus 30 seconds.
Obviously, Jason didn't do enough homework there.
T-minus 20 seconds.
I lied. I didn't do any homework.
Well, since it seems as though nobody knows.
We don't know.
No, we don't know.
Dallas, Texas, Mr. Texan over there.
Mr. Texan.
Dude, we didn't have a Blockbuster. I had a local owned video store, so probably couldn't afford shit from Blockbuster back then.
Yep, it was opened in Dallas, Texas by David Cook due to the collapse of the oil market. His wife had the idea, and he had written the programming for like big inventory management for oil businesses. So he kind of applied that to big inventory for movies, and Blockbuster was born.
Interesting.
Cool. Right here in the great state of Texas.
Now he wants credit for it.
Now, another Blockbuster question here.
Oh.
What genre of movie did Blockbuster opt to not stock in their stores that was a big moneymaker for independent rental stores?
Porn.
That didn't take long.
Bam!
Yeah.
Yep.
That would have been my guess.
The Cooks decided early on that Blockbuster would be a genital-free zone, stating that we don't care if you watch pornography. We just don't want to sell it to you.
But they had Reanimator.
I'm about to say they had Reanimator. Shoot,
I know that.
Return of the Living Dead.
Softcore. They were fine with softcore.
Okay.
Not hardcore pornography.
Well, that brings me to the question of the night. I'm just going to get right to it up front.
Okay.
Did Josh see pubes?
That's all, Josh. But they weren't men's pubes. They were female pubes.
I don't know how you could have missed them, to be honest. All right. Reanimator was brought to life because Stuart Gordon felt as though vampire films were oversaturating the horror genre. So he wanted to do an updated Frankenstein story. And someone told him about the H.P. Lovecraft story, Herbert West's Reanimator. And therefore, this was born. Now, in 1985, there was a loose interpretation of Frankenstein released called The Bride. What 80s rock star was the lead role in that film?
Sting.
Eric, we're starting to learn that you aren't...
Yeah, bitch! Get the fuck out! Go to detention. Go to detention.
Whatever.
Not only that, it's Sting, dude. Come on.
I remember watching that one quite a bit on cable as a kid.
That was a good dude. That's actually a really great Frankenstein movie.
I think that's going to do it for our questions here, because I just realized that the one that I have here, I've already given you the answer to. So didn't do very good on my part this time around. So
Lovecraft?
No. Well, I mean, it has to do with Lovecraft because, okay, I'll go ahead and tell it to you, even though I've already told you the answer. Reanimator was loosely based on the H.P. Lovecraft story, Herbert West's Reanimator. Stuart Gordon will go on to direct another Lovecraft story the next year, From Beyond, starring which two actors from Reanimator? Mm-hmm. And I already said Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton, so
yeah,
shot myself in the foot there. Well, let's start talking about Reanimator. Again, basically a second watch for me, a second watch for Eric. Jason, you would probably be the one who's seen this more than anybody else. Tell us a little bit about your history with this one.
Well, like I touched on a little bit. I mean, like we talked about the whole video store thing. I mean, my mom would let me go in and rent whatever horror movies that I could find, but this is one that she made me pass over many times, but I eventually did get around to watching it. I was probably in the middle teens, and back by that time, she didn't care. I mean, I was listening to music that was more vulgar than most movies. So, but I watched it. I don't know if it was the X-rated or R-rated cut. I still don't think I've seen maybe the X-rated.
I think back then, probably the only thing we could have seen at that time was the R-rated cut.
Yeah, but yeah, it was definitely a hard movie to watch. I think as a kid, I mean, you really don't. It doesn't have just a straight story of what's going on, and of course, the sexual stuff. I mean, you're coming into that at 14, but you're like, whoa, this is way above my pay. You know, this is above the Sears catalog. So
Yeah.
you know, you're not up there to headless vagina sex. So I hope I never am, actually. But like I said, it wasn't one of those films that stuck out to me as a horror have to. But I mean, I know that the following for this movie, the fans of this movie are hardcore.
Oh yeah,
to them, it's a top-notch horror movie. It's a have to type thing. But I mean,
well, that's the biggest reason I talk. That's the biggest reason I talk a lot about Stuart Gordon too, is because he kind of comes attached to that. He was sort of the the catalyst for bringing all this H.P. Lovecraft stuff to film early on, like he did.
Yeah. And I mean, I have tons of friends who love Lovecraft stuff. I mean, I was even in a band. We wrote songs about H.P. Lovecraft stories with our buddies Jim Dodge and Jeremy Wills. So that's how I got to know more about Lovecraft, was through them, and then realizing they made these movies, and this movie was a Lovecraft story.
Right.
Well, loosely.
Right.
It's kind of more Frankenstein than
I think I think everything's kind of just loose as far as all of them. Well, in more ways than one. But
yeah, I've probably seen it more than you like guys in total, but as a sit down all the way through, this is maybe third or fourth.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to how many times I've watched Halloweens and Fright Nights and all that stuff, this is
not
very
a
low on the
super
list.
special movie for any of us, really.
No,
It's not. It's still a good movie, but it, like you said, if you watch this as a kid, you don't know what the hell's going on. You're just there for the gore. You know,
Sure.
then you realize more of what's
That's
going on.
most
in the
of
story.
why I'm there now, but
well, I'm there for Barbara Crampton, to be honest.
Yeah, I watched her new movie, Jacob's Wife, on Shudder.
I haven't watched it yet. I want to. I heard she's pretty good in it, to be honest. But
Dude, she still looks pretty good too.
she's made a resurgence in horror here recently too. I mean, she was in the Your Next movie that came out a few years back. So, all right. Well, first things first here with this is the thing that I notice is this opening title sequence and score. I mean, it starts with Herbert in the college, and we don't know what's going on. There's just some crazy shit happening in a classroom, and you get the whole opening scene with Herbert West saying, "I gave him life," you know, the classic Frankenstein moment. But what gets me every time with this movie so far is every time the title sequence comes up, because I think Psycho ripoff.
Psycho, yeah, 100%. Yeah, as soon as it comes on, you're just like, whoa, what? Yeah,
I'm like, how the hell did they get away with this, to be honest?
Yeah, I do like that animated intro though.
That I love.
Despite the
yeah,
all the anatomical drawings,
the anatomy
and whatnot.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I thought was funny about watching it this time is I'm listening to the open sequence, and I thought back to some of the stuff they had said that Stuart Gordon was originally going to do this as a play and then as a TV series. Go back and watch it again. That opening credit seems like the opening credit for a weekly TV show.
Yeah, it does. I mean,
exactly. Like it's like Murder She Wrote.
Yeah. It's funny how like some movies, you like once you find out about the production of them, you know that they were initially planned to be TV shows, and when you watch them in that capacity, like again with David Lynch and Mulholland Drive, that Mulholland Drive was supposed to be a TV show for ABC. And watching Mulholland Drive, I can really see the layout of it being a TV show that had to be formed into a movie. And much like this kind of feels like something that could be episodical for sure.
The intro, like you said, the music's definitely a Psycho ripoff.
Plus, there's hints of Friday the 13th, but Friday the 13th was also a Psycho ripoff too. So,
yeah. Now going back, talking about horror knowledge, do you remember watching the first Swamp Thing movie?
I have not seen it.
Dude,
neither.
It's Wes Craven did it, but they used the music directly from Friday the 13th in that movie.
Oh, really?
Oh, I mean, dead on. It's not even like we're trying to hide it. It's the same damn music.
Now, there's also something else in this opening sequence that got me the first time I watched this, and they're talking about this dead professor, and they're talking about Dr. Gruber.
Hans
and then
Gruber.
later they call him Hans Gruber.
I didn't notice that.
You didn't? Wow.
Dude,
No.
y'all did a Die Hard episode without me. You know. Come on.
Dude.
All right.
Missed it.
We're taking his action card away too. His horror card's out the window. Action card taken. Gone.
I think you can, well, that's my point, is I think you can know Die Hard and not know that this was here. But, you know, this is one of those things where you watch it a few times, you start to pick up on that stuff. But I got it from the first note when they said his name. I was like, is this a coincidence? But apparently there's no connection there. Like they didn't name the character in Die Hard after this doctor or anything. It's just a crazy coincidence.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Hans Gruber. No, nobody threw him off a building. They just stabbed him with stuff and his eyes exploded.
Yeah, that's some great makeup right there in the beginning of this. And
Yeah, you get exploding eyeballs right in the beginning.
Well, not only that, even the bladder effects under the skin with the veins lifting.
yeah,
That's actually pretty good. I mean, because I think everybody that was working on this movie was relative new
right.
to their craft that they were doing. And I mean, there's some actually pretty good special effects, practical makeup in this movie. That's
Oh,
not
yeah.
bad. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
stuff that's really bad, and then there's stuff that's okay. So
It's kind of par for the course for
80s.
the 80s movies.
It's
here.
under $1 million budget.
Yeah, I mean, and when you get into to the next movie, From Beyond, you got a lot of the same sort of style of makeup there, but then they started interjecting visual effects in there as well, and some of the visual effects in From Beyond are really, really bad. But with this one, I mean, you've got the dead folks in this movie that look very similar to the original Dawn of the Dead zombies with the blue makeup and whatnot, real heavy on them. Again, I don't know if this obviously was never thought to be something we would watch in HD, because that's really what blows out all that color and that we're seeing now is all the makeup and whatnot. Now that we're watching these movies in HD format, but yeah, I mean, but still, it doesn't really degrade the makeup work here, because I'm loving every bit of gore I'm seeing on screen. There's some things that look better than others, but
Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe inconsistency, but some of the stuff looks really good.
Yeah, I think I read that Stuart Gordon, they went to a lot of morgues and checked out body because he wanted to get like the blood pooling in the skin, after rigor mortis is starting to set, and he wanted the bodies to look realistic as they could when they were dead, just laying there. And I think he did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah,
right, and using a lot of like just real bodies too. I mean, I think there's something about this movie that's a little more uncomfortable because there's a lot of naked people in it.
Yeah. And
they're just so like comfortable, like it makes me a little uncomfortable because I'm just not used to, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I understand what you mean completely. And it even goes into the first scene that we get to after the openings here with Dan Kane. He's, trying to revive someone that has just passed away, or their heart has failed.
Right. It's a woman. It's a fully nude woman.
Yeah. Fully nude woman and a bigger woman as well. So it's just, it kind of puts you in a situation where you're like, should I even be seeing what's going on right now?
Yeah. You feel like you're not supposed to be in the room.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, it really it's a real body, not off camera. It's right on camera. Yeah, it doesn't hold back from that stuff. And that adds a level of, like a visceral vibe to this movie that other movies don't quite achieve, just because it's
right. It's definitely a lot more of that later when all these corpses start coming, becoming reanimated. And it's, usually we're just seeing dummies like laying on tables and whatnot, but you can tell,
or clothed people. I mean, clothed zombies, like not just fully naked zombies. Obviously we do see naked zombies from time to time in zombie history, but bodies are just on display in this movie. And it's kind of a reminder of how much is covered even in movies that these crazy horror movies that are super gory and super like R-rated, and we're still used to, as American viewers especially, just used to having bodies covered. We're not used to seeing naked bodies on camera.
This movie also is a great example of how the MPAA really had it out for stuff like Friday the 13th, because this managed to skate by on a NC7, on an R rating, and I can't imagine they cut too much out of this that I didn't see in the unrated cut, but they still hacked a movie like Friday the 13th to pieces, and like there's stuff here that completely rivals anything I've ever seen in a Friday the 13th movie.
Oh yeah, sure. The whole the Dr. Hill stuff later is way worse than any death scene that they took out of a Friday the 13th movie.
Right. And in Friday the 13th, you usually got either nudity going on in a scene and then gore somewhere else. You never had them on screen together a whole lot.
There's an additional step here too. And it's not just the, his decapitated head down at her crotch, but also like him like touching her body. And stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You really don't see a lot of that, even in sex scenes nowadays. Like there must be some rule with ratings and stuff like that. Like you can show nudity, but you can't show touching, or you can't show groping, or whatever it is. But like, his severed head's on the table and his headless body is really just groping her. And it is like uncomfortable.
Yeah,
like
it is
just like, I mean, think of how many horror films you've watched, all the heinous horror, all the topless women. They're, naked women are everywhere in horror movies, but something about this scene is just really icky.
Think about this and a movie. I don't know if Josh has ever watched it, like I Spit on Your Grave, that really pushes the boundaries of some horrible shit, and that movie was, I don't know if it ended up being X or NC-17, but I mean, I know that it went into theaters and only didn't even last a week. They pulled it out of theaters.
Yeah.
I've seen that, and I got this right here. I think makes me a little more comfortable as far as what's going on there. I mean,
that's also an extreme example. Yeah.
So
that is arguably worse.
And
this is so outlandish and crazy. It at least has that. It's removed from reality a little bit.
And it's easy, especially from someone like me who hasn't seen this movie a whole lot, watching it the first time and then going into it again here the second time to do for the show. It's easy. It's weird because that stuff is so gross and uncomfortable, but it's easy for that stuff to get lost in what this movie is. Like when I think of Reanimator, I don't think about this whole subplot of Dr. Hill having the hots for Megan and all of the and she's really the catalyst for where the movie ends up in the end, ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, she's weirdly almost like a main character.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as, you kind of think it's going to be Dan, but by the end you're getting a lot more Megan than Dan. And you got Herbert in there, but he never really feels like the main guy either.
He's just a prick.
It's a weird,
he's just an absolute prick.
All right.
Yeah, he's an asshole.
Well, now that we're here and we're talking about Dr. Hill and we're talking about Herbert, this is where they meet because now he's at the new school. We met Dan and they're down in the morgue and Dr. Hill comes in and dude, a lot of people might think that Herbert West's character, was it Jeffrey Combs that plays him?
Yeah.
Might have been overboard. I actually like the overboard acting he does in this movie because I think it fits him. Like he's taking his role serious.
Oh yeah.
Through the whole movie. And I think
I like the performance too.
I think it's great. I mean, a lot of people be like, well, okay, dude, this is a cheesy, campy 80s movie. No, he come into like this, like, no, I'm taking like, this is, we're trying to win an Oscar here with going overboard. And I'm like, but I love it. I mean, because a lot of movies, it's a total like turn off. You're like, he's overacting. Dude, you realize what you're making here?
Yeah, I mean,
no, it works.
Yeah, the whole
I love it.
The whole introduction of him to Dr. Hill and how he tells Hill that he's shouldn't be teaching people because he's teaching them the wrong information. And
your new teacher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even think Herbert is a teacher. I think he's coming in as a student.
No, he's a student.
Yes.
Yeah, he is.
He is a student because after they meet and he calls him out and you can already tell that he's rubbed Dr. Hill the wrong way. He's like, I'll see you in class.
Yeah.
So Herbert is just a student. I mean, he is not on the same level as Dr. Hill, but he's basically called him out like, I don't care what you say, you're wrong.
And this is what I kind of want to get into from the get-go here is we've got this whole cold open with Herbert and whatever happened with Gruber at this college and or this school of medicine. And then all of a sudden he's here. We don't know what preceded.
No, I mean, it could be a prequel.
Yeah. Like we don't have any of that story other than what we saw in the cold open.
Yeah, I think they ran him out of Switzerland and then he just ended up in Massachusetts.
I mean, he gets away with what happens to the dean here too.
Right.
Keep in mind.
Right.
Well, I mean, he's a slippery fellow.
He is. But Megan, she's not buying his bullshit from the get-go. She knows there's something up with this dude.
Yeah, she's kind of even like when we get our mandatory nudity scene of Barbara Crampton.
That's one of my favorite transitions in this movie is how he's tickling her in the hallway and going, no. And then it cuts to yes.
I like that. Whoever did the editing in this movie, give him an honorary Emmy, Oscar, whatever. That was a great transition right there. That was Josh, fantastic.
You watched, you said you watched From Beyond and something else that Stuart Gordon did. Did he do, because right after that, they're in bed together. We get our first kind of handheld camera shot, like right over their shoulders. And he does that a few times in this movie. Right. Where he's like, it's like very shaky cam right over their shoulder kind of thing. Does he do that in other movies?
There are a couple of instances of that in From Beyond, I believe. And Dolls was after From Beyond, and that one seems a little more polished, honestly. It's definitely nowhere near as good of a movie as this, but
I kind of liked the up close camera
vibe,
particularly when he's scaring her. He's got the sheet on him, and
Yeah, I love that.
The camera's kind of running through the house with them.
I like how he sits up and imitates the corpse and everything. Yeah.
Foreshadowing, Josh. That's called foreshadowing.
Doesn't he say that when he lifts up? He goes, Barbara.
Thanks for always reminding me what foreshadowing is, Eric.
He always forgets. I got to remind him.
Every time.
Yeah, he does call her Barbara.
Well, that's the other thing I can't really put my finger on here with Herbert West is he shows up here wanting to rent the room. We saw earlier that Dan has got a house and he needs to rent the room out so he can afford the house. And he comes in with a fistful of money and he's like, "This is perfect." I'm kind of with Eric here. I want to know what the story is before he gets here. I want that prequel story of how he ended up back over here, because it seems like he should have gone through quite a bit to get out of the situation he was in at the beginning of this movie to just show up here and start our story.
Seems like a similar situation, right? Like he ends up reanimating somebody that works at the university.
Yeah. Josh wants the in-between movie, pre-Animator.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
get that
pre-Animator.
Yeah, pre-Animator.
There we go. We got it. Let's start writing the script, guys.
Movies are always good when you start with a name first.
We got the name. That's all we need to go from there. We're also introduced through this sex scene to Rufus the cat, which is going to play a big part coming up here shortly.
Are we?
No, we're not really there.
Do we see Rufus alive in this movie?
No.
Yes, we do.
We do? Where?
Because after they get done with their promiscuous sex scene, the cat jumps on Dan's back.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that's where we meet the cat for the first time.
I forgot about that too. I was distracted.
They were talking about Rufus and then all that. Yeah, I remember that.
To be honest, they could cut that scene out and it wouldn't make much of a difference and we would never see Rufus alive. That would be kind of funny, to be honest.
Well, that's what I thought because I didn't even remember it. But go ahead.
I want to talk about the gory and the special effects. We get Herbert's interaction with Dr. Hill in class, and we're down there. And dude, that's great when he's talking about how you peel the skin off of the skull. And I love how he grabs it and pulls it around.
Get your fingers under it.
Get your fingers under it.
Peel it like an orange or something.
Yeah, dude, that's great. The 1980s, that's some great effects right there. I mean, that's gooey awesomeness right there.
Yeah, they take the time to really okay, you want to see something gross?
And then the bones, and then the bone saw, yeah. And then he's holding that person's brain in their hand. And I like how he looks at him. 6 to 12 minutes.
Yeah.
It is. Hey.
Well, these are I love the pencil break. You did it.
I broke
Jason just broke a pencil. Good work. That's funny. I mean, that's the sense of humor in this movie. And West is
sense of humor.
Jeffrey Combs is
serious.
Really kind of like you said, kind of pushing it and playing just this really crazy. He's snapping pencils as the guy's trying to talk, just staring him right in the eye, like. That stuff's funny.
If Jeffrey Combs would have won any kind of award, that would have been the reel they'd had to have used, was just him sitting there with the pencil and snapping it,
Well, I mean, I feel like that the second watch was helpful for me, like understanding the humor of the film, understanding the tone better. The first time watch, I wasn't totally it wasn't clicking for me, but this time I was like, I got it. I understand what you're going for, and
let's make no bones about it. I mean, I love this movie, even though I've not seen it as many times as some other horror movies. But this movie makes about as much sense as something like Maximum Overdrive. Like, the science here is no good. It makes no sense the way any of this would work. We'll get to that later whenever Dr. Hill has lost his head. But
that's the biggest issue for me because yes, I think most things make some kind of sense, except for when we get to Hill. A mindless body. All this talk about brain and brain death and all this, that's the biggest argument with everybody. And then he squirts it in the body and the body comes to life. There's no brain in there.
Right.
Well, we actually get the first glimpse of creepy Dr. Hill at the dean's house.
And for anybody that may be listening that has not seen this movie, I don't know why you'd be listening if you hadn't seen it, but Megan is the dean's daughter. All these people are connected in some way. And then, but
this is actually a really small movie. Like, we're like never outside, right? We're never outside.
I don't think so.
Is there an outside scene? I don't think so.
No.
We're always either on a set. We're always on set. We're either in the hospital,
basement, morgue,
basement,
apartment,
house,
Dean's house.
Yeah.
We're never outside. There's really just like there's like 20 people in this movie, and that includes like a bunch of nameless characters. You know,
Right.
Zombies.
It really is a small operation.
And Jason briefly mentioned Dr. Harrod earlier, and that is Stuart Gordon's wife. She's in most of his movies. The nurse at the beginning that's telling Dan that she's gone and all that stuff. That's Stuart Gordon's wife.
Oh yeah, Carolyn Purdy.
Yeah, she was
Gordon.
in From Beyond too.
And Dolls.
But yeah, we get the creepy Dr. Hill because he's obviously Googling over Megan and stuff like that. Then we get back to the apartment. Megan and Dan are there. And she's, like you said, she's been creeped out about Herbert West the whole entire time. And they start looking for Rufus. The cat's gone. Where the fuck is the cat?
I'm just imagining this scene now without ever seeing the cat and thinking how silly it is that we would have never seen a cat that they're so worried about.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, he's got a cat. Okay, sure. It's funny, the scene where the cat attacks West and it's all over his back and he's trying to hit it off his back.
Yeah.
Chase the cat around. This is all just complete goofy slapstick.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, it feels like something you'd see in a play, which this was intended to be at first.
If you think about it, the movie basically plays out like a play. Like you have very few backgrounds, more
right?
apartment,
a few sets,
and that's how it plays out. But hey, one thing of knowledge: did you do your homework? Did you know that the cat in the refrigerator was real?
In the refrigerator?
Yes, that was a real
dead cat.
Dead cat.
Wow. No, I did not know that.
It looked pretty real.
Yeah, the one in the refrigerator, not the one we're going to talk about on the table. And what's bad is he's being attacked by the cat, and Dan's down there, and he loves this cat, and he ends up slamming it in the damn wall, and you can see the brain stick to the wall, and it slides down. I'm like,
yeah, we got lots of good splatters on walls in this movie.
I think there's a particular point when the body of Hill comes in and gets Megan later. He slams Dan against the wall, and Dan's head makes a splat on the wall.
Yep. Dan's head. When Hill gets thrown, his head gets thrown to the wall. There's some brains stuck to the wall. The cat. Yeah, some good wall splatter.
This is the first time we actually get to see in this part of the movie with the whole reanimator, the serum, or I forgot what he calls it, something.
The reagent.
Reagent. Yes, I can't. Yeah, I can never.
Well, we should say that West says that the cat was already dead when he found him. He was going through the trash and got his head stuck in a jar and suffocated.
Wow, that's very
very believable.
Yeah,
it's a little sus there, Herbert.
Yeah.
Could
have worked. Genius could have worked on a better excuse there. Anyway,
or I wrapped the bag around the cat's head and suffocated it so I could do experiments on it.
So it really doesn't take Dan long to get on board here. You'd think our character Dan, the straight-laced good student guy, would, but he's on board pretty quick.
How do we feel about Dan here? Because I feel like he really takes a backseat to Herbert and Megan. And
he's there.
Totally agree.
But he kind of goes up and down. He's like, I'm here, and then I'm not, and then I'm here, and then I'm not.
But he's definitely.
Sure, I mean, he bridges the gap between the two, right? They're the two extremes. But Megan is so level-headed in this movie. Like I actually kind of realized this time how right she is. Actually, also her dad, the dean, is very right when he realizes immediately when Dan talks about this reanimating the cat and everything. The dean immediately goes,
"You guys are out of here." Yeah.
Yeah. And he was right.
Yeah, absolutely. He was.
They play him like an asshole, but everything he does in this movie is right. He's looking out for his daughter,
looking out for the school.
Yeah. He wants her to be taken care of. And, he wants to be with a good guy. He was all right with Dan. Well, he was clean with everything. But once he gets involved with West, who's obviously trouble, he goes, no, that's it. And he was totally right. Megan is the smartest person in this movie.
And to be honest, like that's throwing a stereotype upside down for an 80s horror movie. Usually the girl is not the smartest person in the room in those movies.
Okay. Dan obviously is easily manipulated by West here, or at least, doesn't have like he doesn't fight this very much.
Right.
Like
as
soon as
he blackmails him though. He kind of throws it at him.
He does blackmail at one point, but I mean, as soon as he sees that the reanimation thing works, he wants to know more. He's interested in it. I mean, he's a doctor. He's fascinated by it.
But we only really get that from that opening scene with him trying to save the person. Like he is just so enamored with making sure we can keep people alive. Not.
Yeah. I mean, that's his motivation.
He really wants to save everyone. And I think that's what he's doing. Not only is he being blackmailed by West with his little speech to him, but deep down, he's like, if we could save everybody and nobody has to die, I think that's what's in his head. I mean,
I agree.
Be the good person, the good doctor,
but he's also like the big, like he's the boyfriend and he's like the kind of hero, like of this movie.
Is he?
He's kind of a big guy. Well, I mean, he's the stereotype of it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Like when you see him, he's the hunky, like
he's the good looking, kind of tall, dark hair.
Yeah. And Herbert is kind of the nerdy, mousy guy, but Dan isn't even good in the physical situations here.
Right.
So like he fails in the mental stuff and the intellectual stuff and the moral stuff, but then he also fails when shit hits the fan. Like we need Dan to help Megan here. And like Dan just gets his ass beat every time he deals with anything.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, he's definitely not your stereotypical like hero of the story. He's constantly getting pummeled.
Yeah. When the dean comes and he's been brainwashed and lobotomized or whatever to get Megan, he just throws Dan against the wall and takes Megan.
Yeah.
When all those bodies come to life, Dan can't fight them off. Can't do anything.
Really, the unsung heroes of this movie are like the dean, and when Dean becomes undead and like is going crazy, and like all of his physical acting in this movie is great. I think the dean here is awesome.
Yeah, and he saves the day at the end, or at least
And that's the other thread of this movie that I find so interesting is how even these reanimated corpses still are attached to us in some way, and they kind of go through that throughout the movie with her constantly wanting to talk to her dad and thinking she can get through to him. And Herbert's even like that's part of the point he's trying to prove with this reanimation is they can respond. When he calls out to the one and tells it to stop, it hesitates. I really like that here. I like that. I think that's good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I like how even though Herbert is kind of the catalyst here and he's going to create chaos wherever he goes and that kind of stuff, he at least has a code. He at least has like a belief system. Like everything's about getting more data, so if okay, we've had a mistake, the dean has been killed, this is the freshest body we can get, let's use this to our advantage and get data from this.
But he has a code in the loosest sense of the term.
He's a scientist.
No, he is the code of.
He's a scientist.
He's
it's
the
all
code
about
of
getting more
scientist.
data.
He needs the data. He doesn't care how he gets it done.
Same when he kills Hill. He kills Hill and he's like, I got a severed head.
Yeah.
I better see what happens when you inject separate pieces instead of the whole. And it's all about getting more data.
We say that Dan buys into this and kind of goes along with it, though, but really it's just Herbert manipulating him the entire time.
Sure, he pushes the agenda.
Yeah. So
that one body that when they get down to the morgue and they're going to do the first experiment, they sneak. Was it Dan sneaks Herbert into the morgue?
Don't lose your thought there, but I wanted to bring this up because of this in this particular scene when they're wheeling Herbert in on the gurney.
Yeah.
Did you notice he's got his shoes off, so it appears as though there's a corpse there. He has a toe tag on his toe, and when he starts putting his shoes and socks on,
he leaves it on.
He leaves it on.
Yeah, I saw that too.
He puts the sock on over the toe tag.
Yeah.
But I think it's so funny when they're in there and he's telling him to record it in the flashlight. Okay, they're looking at a dead body. I mean, they go through he says, okay, this one died, blah, blah, blah. Why is Dan looking at the guy's junk? I mean, he's looking at the guy's body and looks downstairs.
He's checking the body for damage.
Yeah, okay. And I'm like,
He was
looking at the dead man's junk, man.
He's like me, man. He's always looking for pubes.
Looking for
pubes. He's looking for pubes. Pubes positive.
No, I agree with Eric. I think he's just checking the body for damage. I thought the same thing when he first lifted the sheet up. I was like, why is he looking at this dead dude's ding ding? But
he's checking out the cock.
Ding ding.
He's checking out his cat. But hey, another question. What is special about the guy that gets reanimated, the actor that is doing that? He plays a stunt double for a big time character who used to be a governor.
All right, well, this is the perfect time for this segment.
Almost Famous.
I know that, dude.
I don't know them. I know her.
Haven't you ever heard of that guy?
That guy who was in that movie that was out last year?
I'm sort of famous for being almost famous.
All right, Jason, well, who is he?
Hey, it's funny. We look at his judge. His name is Peter Kent.
Jesus Christ, Jason.
But he is the stuntman for Arnold in T2 and all of his movie. He plays his body stunt double. I'm almost wondering if he's the infamous guy on the motorcycle.
I was about to say he's the stunt double I can see on the motorcycle.
I think he may be, because he says he is like his primary stunt double in most of Arnold's movies.
Well, that's funny. I mean, I have a note that they shouldn't have reanimated such a huge jacked dude.
Yeah,
that was they reanimated like the biggest dude. I mean, I know they were trying to find like a relatively undamaged body, but yeah, I mean, he's tossing people around big time.
Well, as far as, I mean, obviously he's not going to be almost famous. I mean, he's been in some big movies, but we don't ever.
I don't know. There's not much in this movie.
I got two people.
From.
I got two.
Go for it.
I mean, I did write Jeffrey Combs because, I mean, we all seen The Frighteners, and I loved him in The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox.
I've seen it once. I don't really remember much about it.
Dude, I've seen that movie so many times. Man, that's good, dude. Come on.
We might have to go back to
He was on House on Haunted Hill, Cellar Dweller, which I haven't seen that in a while, and then all the other Reanimator and Stuart Gordon stuff. But the guy I had, because I actually recognized him from watching lots of TV with my grandparents and my parents, but was the guard, Mace, Gary Black. Mm-hmm. Dude, he was on King of Queens for a long time. He's played in The Majestic, Howling 6, Hill Street Blues for almost the whole run, Death Warrant. He was in National Lampoon's Vacation, Volcano, Mr. Mom.
Dang.
But I remember him from Hill Street Blues because my family watched that all the time. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I had to look it up because I'm like, why do I know this guy's face? And I said, that's it. But I mean, he's been
a terrible security guard in this movie.
Yeah, when somebody shows up, I'm going on coffee break.
This guy is worthless. Even when he's finally shows up, he's armed. Yeah. And we need him, and he goes, I'm going to go call the police. He leaves. I'm like, dude, you are worthless.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but before the third act happens and they get into the morgue, he goes on his little break with his nudie magazine. He was totally wanking it in the bathroom, dude.
Oh, yeah, totally. He could have just stuck around. He had a show there in the morgue.
Right?
That did not cross my mind. You're weird, bro.
Dude, he's looking at a nudie magazine and he goes, well, it's time for a break. And he folds it up and takes it to the bathroom. That's exactly what he was doing.
I don't know, dude. That didn't cross my mind, I guess. But I'm going to go with John Forker. He was...
Sounds like a great forking guy.
Yeah, he is. He was a hospital visitor, uncredited.
I'm like, who are you talking about?
He also played driver in Wayne's World and funeral attendee in Hereditary.
Wow, he's still working today. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always go with Barbara Crampton if you know that.
I mean, honestly, you could name the Almost Famous segment the Barbara Crampton segment because she's...
Yeah, I agree. Like, Barbara Crampton's the go-to.
She is the girl you've seen in all kinds of movies, but I guarantee you the general population does not know her first name. A little less her last name.
She's a good follow on Twitter, too. I don't know if you've...
I think I do follow her on Twitter, actually.
Yeah. She's always doing stuff with the horror community.
But yeah, she's managed to stay throughout the 80s to the 90s to now. I mean, she's still making horror movies, but I don't think she's a household, quote unquote, household name. And
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So that's definitely my pick for Almost Famous.
Yeah, I'll go with you on that.
I can agree with that. Like
that and John Forker.
And John Forker, who was in Hereditary as
funeral
guy.
Funeral attendee. You guys don't remember John Forker in Hereditary and the funeral scene in the background? He's a blurry smudge on the screen in the back. That dude's awesome.
All right, we reanimate Arnold's stuntman here, and he freaking trashes the whole place with both of them. Throw it, like you said, Dan gets his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
Dan always gets his ass handed to him.
And then the dean shows up because he's trying to run Dan out of the damn hospital because he had told somebody to, if he shows up, don't let him work here, because basically they're kicking them both out of school.
As they should.
They should. But, dude, I mean, that's when the dean shows up. First, he gets a door slammed on top of him.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when you become reanimated, you have superhuman strength. You can knock down a freezer door.
Yeah.
So
especially when you're, that big.
Yeah, and you got Arnold running through you, I guess, or something. I don't know. But he knocks him down. But he picks him up, dude. That part where he bites his fingers off.
Yeah.
It's
good.
Dude, I love that. That's good.
This is really a nice little point in the movie where you get some good makeup effects, and even though I can kind of see behind the scenes a little bit when it comes to putting the bone saw through the guy's chest. You can kind of see the fake body and whatnot there a little bit, especially, watching it on the special Arrow Edition 4K Blu-ray. But
he had to put that in there, didn't he?
I'm just kidding. I'm just
4K
kidding.
Steelbook,
I'm just
Arrow
kidding.
Edition.
There's no 4K for this. But yeah, I mean, I love everything that's happening here. And then you've got Herbert just pulling everything out of the air, trying to make excuses for what's going on when the security guard finally gets there. It's a really fun scene and just a great effect spectacular here, in my opinion.
Yeah, shit's hit the fan. Dean gets his teeth knocked out, his head smashed, he gets fingers bit off.
Like, from the moment when he gets his head smashed and his teeth are gone, like, I love the way he looks throughout the rest of this movie. It's so goofy looking, but
also kind of scary. Yeah, like all his teeth fell out.
But the actor sells it. I mean, the actor playing the Dean here is awesome. I feel like he's like the MVP of all of the walking corpses in this.
He is the MVP, and I'll tell you why. Dean Halsey, he gets flattened by a door, gets beaten to death, get his fingers bitten off. Okay, he gets reanimated. Then he gets
lobotomized.
Yep.
And then he gets torn limb from limb and killed again.
All to protect his daughter, even as a brain dead reanimated corpse.
Lobotomized. Yeah. He really pays for it in this movie.
But after all this goes down, we've also got Hill kind of chipping into this subplot here of him being the creepy old guy pondering after a young woman. And this, I want you to think of me as someone you can come to with your problems, or if you're ever lonely. Like, this
right, he's hitting on her right after her father is literally on the other side of a piece of glass.
Yeah.
Looking in that shape. Yeah, she's just lost her father, and he is so gross. Yeah.
It's creepy. I mean, it's creepy enough the way he looks. And not only that, if you think about it, the way he tries to look and act, the original person they wanted to play Dr. Hill was Christopher Lee. So think about it.
Oh, that makes total sense.
I mean,
that's who they wanted, but
they got themselves a
great replacement.
A pretty close replacement. Yeah. Yeah, that guy has such a long face, and he's tall and kind of...
Except for that horrible hairpiece he's wearing through the whole fucking movie.
Well, that and like his teeth are kind of like
weird. Yeah,
they're kind of misshapen and
they're
almost
long,
like
dude.
Yellow, and he's not a very attractive dude, in my opinion.
No, I don't think he's supposed to be.
Now, apparently, there was we talked about there being things cut from this movie, and there was also this whole subplot of Dr. Hill being like this hypnotist.
Yeah, I read that.
And you get fine little hints of that throughout this, but I watched.
Well, that would make sense on how he controls the other corpses.
Well, and they liken that to the laser thing, the laser stuff. That's how he's doing it with them. But yes, I mean that would make that a lot more believable. But apparently, and I watched some of these deleted scenes or extended scenes that they cut down. The whole dinner scene with the Dean and Hill, he's kind of like hypnotizing the Dean and sort of trying to get mind control over him for like trying to be part of Megan's life, which makes it even creepier. And then there's also when he finds out that the Dean is actually dead and he goes to confront Herbert about it, there's a scene that was cut down where he kind of hypnotizes Herbert, and that's how he gets the research. Because we've seen from Herbert so far, like, he's not one to let go of his research and just give it away to somebody. And
that whole scene where they're going back and forth, like he's even staring him down, and you can see Herbert's eyes. It's kind of like he's glassed over.
Yeah, and that was intended.
Yeah, I mean, that line where he says, do what I say or whatever.
You will do what I tell you to do. Yeah, like
right. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that does seem like a hypnotist. Something a hypnotist would say. But let's remember that Herbert, yes, gives him the stuff, but then promptly kills him.
Yeah,
dude, and that's a great kill scene too with the flathead shovel.
Yep.
Dude, you can hear it go into this flesh, go through the bone and into the concrete. And then you see it roll. I was like, great job.
But I mean, again, this is all going to be more in the name of research. He immediately just starts injecting this head with the serum. My favorite part of this is when he sticks his head on the damn the
note thing.
I don't know what that thing's called, but it's the thing you stack notes
it's like
on.
the receipt holder.
Yeah, like a receipt or note holder. I was about to say the same thing, dude. I laughed my ass off when I watched it because I think I forgot about that, and when he shoved it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a case where the comedy just absolutely works here. Like, it's not. I mean, it's cheesy, but it's cheesy in the best way possible. And I when I was watching this and I was writing my notes down, I was like, was this all a power play to give him the research and then be able to experiment on him? But the way it all goes down, it really didn't go that way. But that was the only thing I could really fathom before the scene played out of why Herbert would even give his research to him, was so he could give it to him because he knows Hill's going to do something wrong. But again, it didn't play out that way, but that was something I was thinking about when that scene was playing out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think in the moment you're like, why is he doing this? But then he just kills him. So I figure
maybe he was.
I guess he just, who knows? With Dr. Gruber, might have been a similar situation. We don't really know how Gruber went down. We just know that he.
Yeah.
We know he wasn't dropped off a building.
Right. Yeah. He was reanimated. So how did he die in the first place?
Right.
Yeah.
But while all this is going on, we've got Megan and Dan trying to figure out what the deal is. She's very concerned for her father. She doesn't understand what's going on here. Dan, I mean, what I really love about Megan's character here is from the moment all this happens, she tells Dan, that's it. We're done. And even though he comes to her aid and saves her and whatnot, or attempts to save her in the end and all of that good stuff, there's never a moment where she seems forgiving towards him. Even in the third act, when all the shit's going down and she's making her power play towards Hill and talking to her dad and whatnot, there's never a glimpse of her doing anything for Dan here, or at least I don't see it that way. I feel like she really is genuinely done with Dan once all this stuff goes down.
Well, she does say in the house before her dad comes in, her lobotomized dead dad comes in. She does say, like, I tried to hate you or something like that.
Yeah.
And they do share a moment of an embrace. But yeah, I mean, she does have her head on her shoulders.
She does, thank God.
She also has no one else in her life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. But dude, the Megan folder.
That's what I was about to get to.
Creep factor.
If you didn't have any idea what was going on here and needed proof for it, here you go. Like, he has her fucking hair in a file folder, dude. It's fucking so gross.
I think there was some clothes in the back, maybe some undies or something in the back of that folder too. I'm like, all right, dude, you're a panty sniffer too. What's going on? Creepy old scary motherfucker.
He's definitely a panty sniffer.
Yeah, dude.
For sure.
I mean, like, cause he's got all her little cutouts from anything she had done. Like you said, the lock of hair. What?
Dr. Hill, the panty creeper.
There you go. But dude, I mean, you can even kind of see Dan. He's just like, it's just his face, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But well, that ain't nothing compared to what happens in the next little bit. But
well, here's another part where the comedy in this movie really works for me is when you got this headless body walking around and all of the physical comedy within within Hill's office and like trying to get the shit out of the blood out of the refrigerator. And it's just this bum, like, it's so stupid, but it works so well in this movie.
Yeah.
For me.
We've really descended into like super silly at this point. We've had like a little, tongue-in-cheek comedy, but yeah, once this like headless body's like fumbling around the office and knocking things over,
it's even fun watching the head go from the physical actor's head to the prop. Right. You know, like in certain scenes where it switches like that, it's all working for me. But I really love anytime they've got the actor playing Dr. Hill, you know, under a table or whatever, and his head's actually doing the movements and whatnot.
Yeah,
I love all
that.
Of
Always
that.
Looks good.
Yeah,
I also like when he puts the anatomy, like the head,
the false head,
the rubber,
yeah.
the false head on the body to sneak into the morgue and that kind of stuff.
And Mace goes to go jerk off in the bathroom because somebody's there. Josh has already pointed that out.
Maybe the guy had to take a shit. I'm trying to stick up for Mace here. You know,
maybe you needed to do number 2 and number 3, taking care of one while you're going number 2. I don't know.
Oh my God, Jason.
Is that what 3 is? I
don't know.
Never heard
What's
that.
4?
You tell me, bro.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of some numbers here. But I mean, Josh is the one that said that's what he was doing. I'm just going with Josh.
Yeah, you guys figure it out between the two of you.
I've already got it figured out. Jason can go wherever he wants with his number 3 and number 4 and number 5. You're doing too many steps in the bathroom for me, my friend.
I'm not that coordinated. I have to focus.
But even though I love all this stuff with Dr. Hill and the head and the pan and whatnot, the whole putting blood in there and him like this is the part of it. This is the whole gist of this that just makes no sense whatsoever, because there's no way that blood can recirculate in his head. Like the whole idea behind that makes no sense because there's no heart.
Well, I mean, yes, he wouldn't be able to speak either because he wouldn't be able to push any air through his voice box.
Right.
Yeah, he has no vocal cords. He has no neck.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
my point is all of this is just as silly as the machine gun that I had problems with in Maximum Overdrive.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
But I mean, I even like when he has the head in a bag and he opens it and he says, "That's much better." You don't have lungs. Why do you need to breathe? What the fuck?
Old habits, man. Old habits.
You bring that up, it's a good time for...
You're going to need a bigger quote.
Jason, did you do your job this week?
I do my job every week, brother.
All right, hit us with some taglines, sister.
Taglines. Okay, we'll go with the short one first. Death is just the beginning.
That one's all right. That one's all right.
It's fine. It sounds like a zombie.
It'll scare you to pieces.
That's
hey folks, I didn't write them. I'm just reading them. All right, and this is the long one. Remember, it's the 80s. You always have at least one paragraph.
All right, let me get my finger on the button.
All right, here we go. Herbert West has a very good head on his shoulders. ... And another one in a dish on his desk.
I like that.
Nice. There's actually a shorter version of that on the poster. It says Herbert West has a good head on his shoulders and another one on his desk.
Nice.
So that's pretty good. But the same poster does say it will scare you to pieces also. So
yeah,
who knows?
Quote.
I'll go first. Birth is always painful.
Yeah.
Right.
I struggled a little bit with quotes in this one. I was having a hard time finding some good ones. But
dude,
one that I got here is when Herbert and Dan are talking about doing their experiment and whatnot. He goes, "What are they going to do? Embalm us?" Thought that was pretty funny.
I don't even remember that one.
I got one from our good buddy Mace, the jerking off guard here. Don't know why they keep locked doors here. Nobody wants in and ain't nobody getting out.
I like when Herbert says I think it's to the dean, he says, "Doctor, welcome back to life." It's kind of a nice little crazy doctor, mad scientist line.
They had made a comment when he was Willie and Herbert about what was under there, and then he opens up he goes, walks by the one corpse. "Here's your meatball."
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because for a first time in VHS Files history, I had a quote written down that I could not fucking remember the context of it. And it was, "Here's your meatball."
There you go. Yeah, because remember when he walked in, Mace started to lift up the thing, and he says something about, it's something about a meatball under here, and he's like, meatball? And then when they walked in there, he says, here's your meatball.
Yeah.
Yeah, meatball got hit by a bus or something like that. Yeah. I like when Dr. Hill is just ahead, and he says, West, you bastard. That's his first words after he dies, comes back to life.
Got one, Josh?
Yeah, I like when we get to the third act here and Herbert makes his entrance. He says, "Who's going to believe a talking head? Get a job in a sideshow."
That's my favorite one of the whole. I love that one. I like the one when they're down there injecting the serum, the dean, and you hear Megan holler, and he goes, "Damn it, bitch."
Yeah,
because she happens to show up. He does not like Megan at all.
He doesn't like anybody, dude. Like, the only reason the people around him exist in this movie is for him to get what he wants. He cares nothing for them. He doesn't care about Dan. He only cares about him and his research.
Yeah. Yep. That's all I had. You said the good one.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton of memorable quotes in this one, but nonetheless, I mean, we're talking about all this stuff within this movie, and as dumb fun as this movie is, I have to respect the fact that it kind of goes into some of these areas that we've been touching on with the subplot with the creepy teacher and Megan, and then the whole aspect of bringing things back to life. And it all works together so well here. Whereas if this would have been in anybody else's hands or in a cheaper budget or something like that, I can see this as being another one of those lost movies that sat on the shelves and nobody ever watched. It's crazy how those little things about this movie are really, I think, what continues with this movie to be a part of horror culture.
Yeah,
I think also, like, at its core, the idea of like the philosophical ideas of death, people arguing about when death starts and what is life, and that kind of stuff is just an interesting idea that is a little deeper than someone's killing everybody in this movie.
Right.
Like there's at least like a central like moral question of should you be messing with this,
And that goes back to the Frankenstein story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The same moral questions that Frankenstein is dealing with. Yeah.
This movie reminded me of another fairly popular movie in the 80s as well, and we'll get to that towards the end here.
Back to the Future.
How'd you know?
Everything is related to Back to the Future. Was Michael J. Fox cast for this too?
This is just another alternate timeline. Dr. Hill is the Doc.
Doc, don't do that.
No,
to
I
Doc
can't do that. I can't do that to Doc Brown.
Come on, man. That is, I don't even like joking about that. Doc Brown is a treasure.
Yeah, you go sit in the corner. It's something, dude. You don't talk about the Doc that way, man. Come on.
What if Jeffrey Combs was Marty? He would have been a good George, actually.
You don't know nothing about time travel.
This is just the horror version of Back to the Future.
It does not take 1.21 gigawatts. It takes 1.35 gigawatts.
It takes 6 to 12 gigawatts.
Gigawatts.
6 to 12.
Okay. Well, we are at the disturbing part of the movie here when her dad had broke into the house again, manhandled Dan because Dan can't fight for shit.
Dan's useless.
And he shows up with Barbara. Dan. I mean, not Barbara, but Megan at the morgue. Again, where is the freaking dude? I mean, he must be backed up or something because the security guard's been in the bathroom for a while at this point.
I told you, man. He's
got his boudoir magazine. He's going to be there. He's going to be a minute.
Maybe he's single.
He's going to be a minute.
He might be single. I don't know. You got to take care of some things, Get a little swollen down there. But
all of this with Hill and the body carrying his head around and like mid torso and all of that effects work that they do with this here, I love every minute of this. It is so good. Fun.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole part of it, even when they throw Barbara down and he has his body rip her clothes up, which, dude, is her like clothes in every movie just like removable with one hand? You just grab and wipe them off. Because I mean, dude, they just come right off, like done.
Apparently, the
Velcro.
reanimated bodies are very strong in this because Dan cannot break the grip of any. If anything's got a hold of Dan, he's done for. They've got super kung fu grip. These things,
Yeah, especially the one coming later.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's like what?
But
Dan, like you need a freaking axe to get through this, like this grip.
But I mean, that whole part where, you know, Barbara's unconscious and he's there and then they start talking, and that whole thing when he picks up his head and he starts licking the side of her face.
God.
And
So
then,
gross. So gross.
Sucking on her nipple. I'm like, dude, this is rape. This is
I mean, this is where things get really icky.
What this is happening.
Is it is it necrophilia rape?
Is it different when it's backwards, when the dead guy is raping the live woman?
Yeah. Well, what would that be? Reverse necrophilia?
Reverse necrophilia. Yeah.
Oh, who cares?
He invented it for movies. Reverse necrophilia.
Eric has such a disgusted look on his face right now.
No, that's just me trying to think of a word that I could use for that and trying to like reverse it, but I can't.
Necrophilia, break open a cold one. Hey, come on, fluff it up just for the scene. I mean, you think that we're about to get, you know, like he's going down on her with a head.
Oh yeah, thank God that they get interrupted.
Yeah,
and Herbert and them just show up. Him and Dan are in the morgue.
You know, when you're watching a movie and you're like, somebody needs to interrupt this. Somebody needs to interrupt this. And you're just like waiting. It's like, how has no one interrupted this yet? How is this still?
And then your mom walks in.
And then my mom walks in. It's gnarly. It's just not something you normally see on in a regular movie. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's icky.
Well, I mean, there are those necromantic movies that I haven't seen. I haven't seen them, but
what the fuck?
Yeah, what is he talking about?
What
Jason?
the hell? Josh, babe, we're brothers here, man. We need to have a talk.
Jason, you know, I know
these
you
fictional
know
films or these documentaries?
The necromancer movies or whatever. It's like, I know you've heard of them.
That's not what you said.
Yeah,
you didn't say
I've
necromancer. It's important.
You said necromantic. I thought it. I don't
know. No, it is necromantic. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is it necromantic?
Yeah.
You're necromantic.
I know.
Is that what Dr. Hill is? He's just being necromantic.
That's what this is. That's what this whole scene is necromantic.
He's a hopeless necromantic.
What we don't see is the candles lit in the corners, you know, rose petals on the ground.
Right. He was just trying to make the girl feel special.
Yeah, some Barry White playing in the background. Hey, baby.
I hear you've never had decapitated head before. I'm going to make this special for you.
Boy.
Oh my God.
But we do see eventually things come around here, and we do see that there is some weight to the fact that Megan's father still does recognize her in some capacity.
Yeah, he saves the day. I mean, they were all done for.
Yeah. And you talk about these guys having kung fu grip. He definitely has some kung fu grip when he grabs hold of Hill's head and crushes that shit. That scene is awesome.
And then they pull his body into pieces too. I mean,
Well, remember they had the fight scene, and then Stuart, or I keep saying, but Herbert goes up behind him and he says, "Remember I told you I had this thing," and he freaking juices him, like shoots him up, and that's when he's able to like totally just destroy his head.
Well, no, he juices up the headless corpse,
the body.
I thought he juiced up her dad.
No, he does it to the headless.
No,
he does it to Hill.
He does it to Hill's body is attacking the back.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. That's right. For some reason, I thought he stabbed him in the back.
That helps the Dean finish off Hill's head, but then Hill's body has tentacles shooting.
No, it's his intestines.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm saying tentacles because it operates like a tentacle.
Yeah,
and we're talking about Lovecraft here, but yeah, I mean, what exactly happens there? There's like a light coming out of his body. It's almost like an entrance to another realm or something.
My next note literally was, so what the fuck is this thing that comes out and grabs Herbert? Because it's not explained.
It's not his penis, which we would probably think that it is his intestines.
But West is in these other films, right? So
yeah, that's one thing.
It appears that he dies here.
That's one thing I made a note of is they leave Herbert kind of open ended. Like you're supposed to assume like all this gas is going on in the lab now, and I think a fire breaks out, And you don't know at the end of this movie what's happened to Herbert. He throws his research all over to Dan. Dan takes it.
Take it. Yeah, take my notes.
So yeah, at the end of this movie, you really don't have any idea. Well, you're to assume that Herbert passed with.
But you have seen the future films, yes?
I have not seen the sequels.
I haven't either.
Oh, okay.
But he is a character in both of them.
Yeah.
So
I know he is. So I'm just curious, if I'm sure they answer that somehow. But
one of the coolest things I think they do here with this story is no holds barred. They kill Megan in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the kung fu grip of the zombie.
Yep, that's exactly what I was alluding to earlier. Like, he has to take an axe to this guy to get his fucking arm off.
They must be strong as shit, dude.
Yeah.
Dan just needs to hit the gym, maybe some creatine,
right.
Maybe steroids. I don't know. But Megan dies. We take her upstairs. He's trying to resuscitate her. And again, he doesn't want to give up. But what's going to happen. It's a horror movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Everybody makes bad decisions.
You've got the bag. Yeah, you've got the bag. Clearly, it's time to.
And that leads me to what I was alluding to earlier with this movie reminded me of another movie, and it was Pet Sematary.
I have a note. I wanted to talk about Pet Sematary too, because you've got a cat.
Yep.
You start with a cat coming back from the dead. You're dealing with. Do you let the dead be dead?
I mean, it's the same thing without the serum. If you really think about it, you just got an Indian burial ground in place of a scientist and a serum.
Yep,
exactly. And it's the Lovecraft story. I've never read it. I assume that predates.
Oh, it does. That was like 1922 is when that.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's
Stephen
old.
King ripped off Lovecraft.
Actually, when did Pet Sematary come out?
I think 1989.
Yeah, so this was before that as well. So
the book.
But
when did the book?
I think the book was 80s.
I'm just talking about the film, but
I mean, Lovecraft was definitely way before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, does King dig into this stuff, or is this just stuff that pops up in literature all the time? Like,
Well, I think most common writers are probably influenced by H.P. Lovecraft in some form or another.
Yeah.
Sure,
It's like and people nowadays are influenced by King.
Right.
You always have a little touch.
And like you were talking about, Mary Shelley as well.
Yeah.
With that stuff.
Yeah.
And Lovecraft took
it's just interesting to think of, like, but the cat connection is to me like the real, like, oh wow, these are really similar. They're not just dealing with like the same ideas, but they really start off with a cat.
The cat kind of brings me to another comparison too, and this one that we talked about a couple episodes ago, and that's Night of the Creeps.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Night of the Creeps. Also, just in the sense of scale too, the scale of the film.
Right.
All
right. Well, this is the horror section. This is a horror movie. Therefore, it's time for
Top Kills.
My favorite kill in this movie is the decapitation of Dr. Hill with the shovel.
That's a good one.
I second that, but I'll change mine because that's what I had. Because, rapist, creepy guy needs to be killed. What do you got, Eric?
I'll go with Bonesaw through the back. I like it. It's gnarly.
I like it a lot.
Well, since you took that one, I'm going to go from when the Dean crushes his fucking head.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, like, you can take, he dies the first time, and then creepy rapist guy needs to die again. So there's double justice there.
Yeah, double justice.
Other than those, I mean, do we have any other cool kills we like? I mean, that's my top. It's just, rapey guy needed to die anyway.
I agree. No, I mean, that's my top one was Dr. Hill, whether it was the first kill or the second one. He's my favorite person who dies in this movie.
I like the Dean getting torn to pieces too.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Why?
All right, as my pick this week, I'm going to start the good for me. The reagent, the green glowy liquid. I fucking love it so much.
Oh, that's my good as well. It's the best thing in the movie.
Along with the gore and the makeup and the way the comedy hits, all of that stuff is great here. Barbara Crampton is great here. Love all that stuff.
When you think of Reanimator, you think of that glowing green reagent.
Yes.
That much. That is first to Dr. Hill's head is second at this point. The bad is I wish I would have seen this movie sooner. I wish I would have grew up watching this thing all the time, so I had even more of a love for it. I think this is a great new addition to my, horror knowledge. I'm so sad that I didn't see this when I was younger, or at least wasn't interested enough to watch it when I was younger. And my ugly is Dan's kind of useless here. I think, in the end, I don't know how much good Dan actually does. I think he does more damage than good here. And the death of Megan is handled a little poorly. Like, she dies very fast, and it seems to serve for the ending of the movie. And I think they could have done it a little bit better. I think the way she dies is kind of so.
Yeah, she could have had a more dramatic death than just being choked.
So
you don't even really see her die. You kind of think she's alive still.
Yeah.
When he's carrying her, and then you go, "Oh, she's dead." What? My good is the reagent, like I said. Bad is I'm gonna go with Dan for my bad, and ugly is the groping scene.
Yeah,
it's just icky. I don't need it. Don't like it.
All right, Jason, finish it up.
My good. Love the 80s gore, the cheesiness.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's
give me
so
more.
Good.
More gore.
I love how they, for 1985, they pushed the limits of the creepiness and the goriness and stuff like that, and got away with it. It's still a pretty good movie. I love the Jeffrey Combs overacting.
Yeah, he's great.
I love it.
Yeah,
dude, it's so good, and I mean, he keeps it up through. I mean, even like in The Frighteners, I don't know if you haven't seen it, he kind of does the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically the same character in From Beyond too. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Bad. Sucks that Rufus the cat died. I hate animals getting killed, and
cats are dumb.
Dr. Hill's hairpiece is fucking
Dr.
horrible.
Hills.
The ugly is headless rapist Dr. Hill, just because he's. I mean, come on, dude, that's creepy as fuck. Yeah. Like you said, it's icky, it's nasty, rapey. Rapey's never good, but I know, but that goes back to also my good. I like that they did push the envelope and everything, the limits of this film, but yeah, you still can't cheer up for a rapist. So that's my.
I think that might do it for our conversation about Reanimator here. Had a good time watching this one again, man. I the more I watch this movie, the more I love it, and I'm sure it'll be regular viewing going forward for me.
Yeah, it's fun to revisit for sure.
It's definitely next October. I'll watch it. It's definitely a Halloween series. I mean, something you could watch that time.
And I have Bride of Reanimator here. I'm planning on watching it pretty soon. I got to get my hands on Beyond Reanimator, but you could probably look forward to those coming up in a horror section in the future, because I would definitely love to watch those and talk about them.
We'll do those next September.
Well, we are going into October, and Reanimator is kind of kicking off our October, and we know we are going to be coming back with our next episode is going to be the original Evil Dead. So we have that to look forward to. Eric's been looking forward to watching that one for a while, I think. So,
yeah, I've been wanting to revisit it. It's been a while.
Sam Raimi's always good.
Yeah.
I actually owned that one on DVD with the whole Necronomicon. I bought it just because of the cover. I'm like, dude, it's foamy and gooey, man. And when you open it, it looks like a Necronomicon. It's got the pages in it. It's pretty cool.
Just don't read it aloud.
Right. Yeah, like the idiot in the remake or any of the movies that read it aloud.
Batu Verada.
Well, before we get out of here, I do want to say I was a guest on Silver Linings Playlist with our friend Nathan, and we talked about the Brandon Cronenberg film Possessor. That should be hitting the airwaves, I think, next week. So please head over and check out our friends at Silver Linings Playlist and listen to me talk about my opinions on the film Possessor. I was also on the Backlook Cinema podcast with Zach and So. They are a father-son team who watch older movies. The father kind of shows his son the movies he loved when he was a kid, and they kind of talk about their opinions of them. And I was a guest talking about John Carpenter's Vampires on their show. So I do believe it also hits the airwaves this weekend. So please go check out our friends in those two podcasts, Silver Linings Playlist and the Backlook Cinema podcast with Zach and Zoe. You can reach us on any of the social medias at VHS Files Podcast. You can check out our YouTube channel. And until next time, be kind.
Rewind! Pre-animator. Write it down, folks. It's happening. Pre-animator.
Pre-Animator out 2025.
It's over. You've been listening to the VHS Files Presents The Horror Section. We drop new episodes every Friday, so make sure you're subscribed and leave us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast. Interact with us on all social media platforms at VHS Files Podcast. Email us your questions, comments, and movie suggestions at vhsfilespodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back.
I mean, you shut up.
You shut up.
You shut up.
It's not a bobblehead. It's like a bobble bob. God,
What the fuck's in that coffee?
it's a bobble body.
Premature ejaculation. That's what happened to the.
Fuck you!
Hey, we need makeup for the bush.
What is that? What's happening? Why are you laughing? I mean, I still watch a lot of horror. I'm still a horror fan. I don't know why I get left out of this horror fan thing just because you guys watch some horror at younger ages than me. I'm not
exactly. You're still green behind the ears there, a little wet, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you're
one learner.
You're still in general education. We're like in grad school, man.
That's ridiculous.
Dude, you're
no.
You've watched enough horror films like to when me and Josh were maybe about 14.
Listen, I've still seen as many probably horror films. It's just in a smaller time period.
Honestly, Eric, you probably have not seen some of the shit that I've seen.
You're probably right. You've seen more than me.
I've seen some shit, man.
I'm no slouch. It's like we're all seniors in high school. Maybe you're like, you just turned 18, and I'm still 17, and we're seniors.
We're all seniors.
We're still seniors. I'm not like a freshman. I don't like where's horror movies. I've never seen a horror movie.
No, I mean we're all seniors, but Eric's riding the short bus in the remedial classes. Me and Josh are doing like trigonometry of horror.
We're in advanced classes.
On to Harvard of horror.
We can't. Jason and I can't do trigonometry in real life, but we can fucking talk horror movies.
Yeah, Eric's smarter than both of us.
It's not like trigonometry. It's more like you guys did addition and subtraction for like 5 years before, like longer than I did. I did addition and subtraction for like a year. You did it for 5 years, and then we all went up from there. You guys were watching schlock.
I've seen schlock. It's pretty good.
Friday the 13th, all that bullshit. You guys watched a bunch of schlock.
No,
No.
Schlock. That's what you got to get through to be up in this class, buddy.
Yeah,
you better get
pay
your shit together.
dues. You got to watch shit like The Stuff and Evil Bong and Ginger Dread Man to get here.
That's your addition and subtraction.
Jason's hockey mask is on the top of the fucking cap and gown, buddy. You don't graduate until you get to those.
Oh, no.
Too bad the podcast hasn't started yet. I think I'm going to have to clue people into, hey, if you haven't stuck around for after the credits on our podcast,
you're missing out.
Maybe you should take a listen. Yeah, because there's little bloopers at the end of every episode.
It's usually embarrassing.
Nah, just for you.
Nah, just for you, man.
Just for you.
Just for you.
Just for you.
No, just for you.
No, just for you.
I'm rubber and you're glue.
Just for you.
Just for you.